All right, today we're gonna take a look at what's called the midpoint formula. And so if you can imagine a line segment, this is a formula you can use to find the very middle point of the line segment, as long as you know where the endpoints are. Now, to kind of get in the right mindset for this, let's think about averages, or the mean of something. So to find the average of a pair of numbers, we just add them up and divide by 2. Right, so for 11 and 19, 11 plus 19 is 30. If we divide that by 2, the average is 15. Right, and that's kind of the middle number between those two numbers. For 8 and 20, add those up is 28. Divided by 2 is 14. Divided by 2 is 14. And 28 and 66, those add up to 94. Divided by 2 is 47. Okay, so again, there's one more. 112 and 213 is 325. Now, when you divide that by 2, it's not an even number, but that's okay. We get 162.5. Okay, so the average of two numbers is kind of the middle number between them, and you add them up and divide by 2. Well, we're going to be doing the exact same thing to find the midpoint of a line segment. So the midpoint formula uses means or averages to find the point halfway between 2 points on a graph. And so this is kind of a detailed view of what the formula is. You see we have 2 points here, point 1 and point 2. And what we do is add up the x values and divide by 2 to find the midpoint x value. And then the same thing for the y values, add them up and divide by 2 to find the midpoint y value. And then together they make the ordered pair of the midpoint. So in this example, we have negative 2, 7 and 6, 3 as the endpoints of our line segment. So to find the new x value, we're going to add those two numbers together. 6 plus negative 2 is 4, and we'll divide by 2. And then to find the new y value, or the midpoint y value, add these numbers up. 7 plus 3 is 10, divided by 2. And so our midpoint is 2, 5. 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. And the 0.25, just to confirm, is right here. And that is right in the middle of that line segment. These two halves here are equal. Pretty useful. So we're going to do some examples, see how this works out. So if our line segment was at 5, 4 and negative 3, 6, first we add up the x values. 5 plus negative 3 is 2, and we'll divide by 2. And then we do the y values. 4 plus 6 is 10, divided by 2. Maybe I'll do the x values in, let's say I do them in blue. Green. So our ordered pair of the midpoint, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 10 divided by 2 is 5. Right, so we're just taking the average of each value, the average of the x values and the average of the y values. For example, B, for x, negative 1 plus 7 is 6, divided by 2. And 4 plus 8 is 12, and then we'll divide by 2. Remember, the dividing by 2 part is how we get the mean, or the average. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So 3, 6 is our midpoint here. Okay, example C, we have 4 and negative 1. 4 plus negative 1 is 3, and we'll divide by 2. And negative 6 plus 8 is 2, divided by 2. And so we get 3 over 2 is, it gives us a decimal, and you can just leave it 1.5. That's fine, because that is actually a fine way to graph that point. If I had to graph the point, I know where 1.5 is. And there won't ever be a different decimal for this formula besides 0.5 if there is a decimal. So 0.5 is fine. You could leave it 3 over 2, but honestly, 1.5 is easier to graph than 3 over 2. If you wanted to put 1 and 1/2, that's okay too, but 1.5 works just as well. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And one more here. Okay, we have 5, 5 and negative 3, 7, so we're going to add these two numbers up. Five and negative 3 is 2. Add up the y values, 7 and 5 is 12. And then we just divide by 2. So our ordered pair is 1, 6. Okay, so there is the kind of just the mathematical way. Now, if you're given a picture, you still need to do it the same way. But it's nice because you can kind of visually confirm the answer. So let's practice some where we have a graph. So on example E here, first we have to determine what the endpoints are. And so down here we have an ordered pair of negative 3, negative 3. So our ordered pair here is negative 3, negative 3. And for the other point, looks like 5, 7. And so we do the same process. So add the x values and divide by 2. So 5 plus negative 3 is 2, divided by 2. And 7 plus negative 3 is 4, divided by 2. So our midpoint would be 1, 2. And we should just confirm that 1, 2 is right here. And that does look like it is right in the middle. All right, example F. This first point is 0, 0. And the second point, 7, negative 2. So again, we'll add up the x values. 7 plus 0 is 7, divided by 2. 0 plus negative 2 is negative 2, divided by 2. Okay, so it looks like we'll get some fractions here. That's okay. 7 divided by 2 is 3.5. And then negative 1 for y. So 3.5 is over 3, and then halfway between 3 and 4, down 1 is right here. And that does look to be right in the middle. So it's nice to get a visual confirmation of the midpoint that we did our work correctly. Okay, last example here, example G. We have a vertical line, but that's okay. Let's do the same process. So this first endpoint, negative 5, 7. And our bottom point here is negative 5, negative 7. So let's average up the x values. Negative 5 plus negative 5 is negative 10 divided by 2. It's going to be negative 5 because if it's the two numbers are the same, the average is just that number. Now 7 plus negative 7 is 0 divided by 2. Well, that's just going to be 0. So our midpoint here is negative 5, 0, right here on the x-axis, which we probably could have guessed just by looking at it. So that is the midpoint formula. Add up the x and y values, take the average of each one, and that gives you the ordered pair of the midpoint.